Hi guys, Tab here, hope you're all keeping well. Yes, we are in the McLaren studio, the makeshift McLaren studio. And we've got to be frank on this video. It doesn't really matter where you're sat right now, but the future for ICE cars is not looking good. And as a self-confessed, self-certified petrolhead, it is pretty hard for me to accept, but it is happening. It is inescapable. It is inevitable. We are living the demise of the ICE engine. There's a few things that might save it, which I'll discuss in this video, but the reality is it tends to be going the way of electrification. I'm currently in the process of choosing my next car, and honestly, I've never had a tougher time of it than I have right now. At times, it feels like my brain has been slowly leaking out of my left ear. There is so much to consider, so many options, and choosing a car now that you might have 3 years down the line when anything could have happened, especially given the way things are going right now, is pretty hard in terms of that looking into the future. I know you can't predict the future anyway, 3 months these days seems to be an awfully long time, but it's something that you have to weigh up, because a car, we all know, it's a big purchase. It's a big step up in terms of the financial commitment over the likes of a chocolate bar or something, right? So in this video, I want to discuss the pros and cons of each, what I'm thinking about, where my head's at, hopefully give you a bit of guidance, a bit of insight as well. If you are watching, really appreciate it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that usual stuff. Thank you very much. And let's crack on with a bit of a discussion. Okay, so discussion time, and I must confess I am back indoors now in the inside studio. So it's 0 Celsius today in the UK, and the McLaren studio, everything was fogging up and I was slowly disappearing inside a veil of mist. So for the purposes of getting the video done, I've had to come back to the inside studio, but it doesn't matter, same topic, same discussion. So to highlight the way I'm going about this conversation, it's not comparing the drive of an EV to an ICE car, right? That's a separate video and should be quite an interesting and exciting topic as we compare two specific ICE and EV cars. Topic of this video is about the practicality and ownership of an ICE versus EV going forwards, because honestly, we are at a real crossroads right now in terms of the options you have available to you when making that purchase. So what do you do right now? You're getting a new car. Do you buy EV or do you buy ICE? Well, the reality is, if you're looking at a car purely to get you from A to B, you buy EV. Now, obviously, you've got to weigh up some additional factors there. So specifically, things like the range, is it going to work for you? Is the journey type going to work for you? Can you charge it at home? Can you afford the initial outlay of an EV because they are more expensive up front? Obviously, you're going to save at running costs. But yeah, the logical answer is to go for an EV or perhaps a hybrid. Now, as we know, in the UK, there shall be no more petrol and diesel combustion vehicles after the year 2030. I think there's a 5-year stay for hybrid, provided they can go a significant range on battery. But the cards for ICE are absolutely marked in the UK, and of course we'll see the same elsewhere worldwide. So, the logical answer here is to go full EV or hybrid if you're not quite ready for full EV. Hybrid, kind of best of both right now, right? So that is the simple logical answer, but nothing about a petrol head is simple or logical. And what we have to understand here is, can we go ahead with an ICE purchase now? Coming up to the end of 2021, going into 2022, does it still make sense to buy an ICE car? I'm looking at new cars here as well. So, ICE cars are obviously cheaper to procure than the equivalent EV vehicle, there or thereabouts. The challenge comes about with what is happening to ICE cars in the UK, specifically in terms of the fuel cost that we're seeing. So fuel costs are currently at an all-time high. I know the wholesale cost of fuel has gone down, but manufacturers or the vendors, I should say, haven't yet passed that on at the pumps, right? Because they're making a tidy profit. So Fuel costs higher than ever. Running costs of an ICE car, definitely higher. But in terms of the ownership and overall experience of it being a car, if you're a petrol head, it is still much more satisfying, I think, to drive. As I say, separate video to compare the driving specifics of an EV and ICE. But from a petrol head perspective, the ICE car proposition is just more fulfilling for a lot of us out there. Now, I appreciate it's not as good for the environment. And going back to my point there about driving an ICE car in the UK. So as we know, the ULEZ zone has expanded in London, so you can't take older ICE, more polluting ICE cars into the ULEZ zone. But what I am a bit worried about as well, or a bit concerned about, is cities going the way of what we've seen in other countries, where and other major cities, Norway being a prime example, right? So you cannot take ICE cars into cities. They have to be EVs. We may start to see that happen in cities in the UK sooner rather than later, potentially. So you've got an ICE car. It's your only car. You could potentially be stuck with a car that you can't take into some areas of the UK. Now, that's not a definite for sure, it's just conjecture, but it's a real possibility. I think as governments, localities, local councils start to say that these ICE cars are polluting and they don't want to see them in their city centres, then this could be a real challenge or issue that we see in the near future for ICE car ownership. Other factors to consider as well. So, as you may know, Porsche have just broken ground on their synthetic fuel plant in Chile. Synthetic fuels are deemed to be around 20% of the emissions of traditional fossil fuels. They burn much more cleanly, much less harmful pollutants in them. But this is only new, right? This is something that is just starting. And honestly, to get to the mass-produced scale that we're going to need for this to be viable is going to take a long time, if at all. And let's be frank, that onward march, that development of EVs is going to continue. Let's look at ICE engines. So R&D, manufacturers R&D, are they pumping that into the development of new ICE engines? No, they're not. A lot of their R&D dollar spend now is going into the development of EVs. ICE engines have been around for donkey's years, and honestly, I think we are absolutely at the pinnacle of where ICE is going to get to. I think a prime example of that is that lovely V12 that Cosworth have just released, going into the T50, and I think a variant thereof in the Valkyrie as well, the AM Valkyrie. Awesome bit of kit, red lines at 12k RPM, something ridiculous, right? Is it going to get any better than that? No, we are absolutely, I think, at the pinnacle of what you're going to see go in to ICE cars in terms of the technology and development. They've had so many cycles of development. They're just a lot of masterpieces out there now. Some gorgeous V8s, that Merc V8, the McLaren engines, love those as well. But we're just absolutely at the pinnacle of what we're going to see with ICE cars. So again, now is potentially a good time to make that buy. It's kind of the last hurrah, right? I'm considering an ICE and an EV for my next purchase. I could go down either road. If I do go down the ICE road, it's absolutely going to be the last ICE car I ever get. Now, let's look at EVs again. EVs are just starting. I know Tesla have been around since sort of mid noughties, early noughties, right? EVs are only just getting started in terms of the tech. Now, I know it's electric motor based, and there's only so much you can do with an electric motor. They're very simple in terms of what they are. It's a magnet, coil, and a stator thing that turns around. You can't do too much with the principle of an electric motor, but you can, with the materials and how efficient they are. I get that. But who's to say that a manufacturer isn't going to come out with some crazy new way of powering an EV and charging an EV? We're only just at the start of EV technology. Absolutely. Lithium-ion batteries have been around for donkey's years. It's old technology. I still think there is something new coming out in the works. I know there's loads of startups and talk in places, new types of technology being developed. Nothing has broken through that glass ceiling yet in terms of new technology. It's a lot of R&D work, but I still think we are absolutely going to see something new in the next 3, 4, 5 years maybe that's going to change the game completely with EVs. And if you get on board with an EV now, you're going to be used to the ownership experience of an EV, how it drives, how it charges, where to charge it, and essentially just how it's going to work for you. But, you know, should the technology improve and come on, you're already going to be down that road. You're going to be happy and you're going to be able to adapt to it, okay? Other challenges against EV at the moment. So we know the charging network is growing daily, but it's still not where it needs to be. I think if EVs start to saturate the roads, let's say you turn up at a garage and it's got 2 EV charging points, even if it's a 15-minute supercharger, if there's 5 cars waiting there, you could be there for hours potentially, right? Just to charge your car if you need to. So, you know, these are all things that you still need to consider. Obviously, that's going to improve massively. I think I read as well that, you know, for example, Norway, there's now more EVs than there are ICE cars on the road. Don't quote me on that. I might have read it wrong, but, you know, that's big. If a country like Norway can do it, why can't a country like the UK do it and other countries? The biggest thing to get your head around and to get over with moving to an EV is just the lack of theatre, the lack of that driving experience, the lack of enjoyment that you get. I mean, they're fun to drive, but you just don't, it's not the same. It's not the same as a manual petrol car. It's not as engaging, right? That's where petrol heads suffer. And a lot of the other people I speak to, like Mr. H Cars, for example, he's holding out for ICE for as long as he can because he loves the experience, right? I'm very much the same as well. A lot of other people I speak to, very much the same. You know, going down the EV road is kind of an acceptance that perhaps the petrolhead days are pretty much over, and a lot of people are clinging onto it for dear life, and understandably so. You've also got to look at it from an environmental perspective, right? EVs are far better for the environment, specifically the air quality, than ICE cars, right? Okay, I know there is still a lot of discussion around battery technology and harvesting the minerals, the lithium required for batteries and the impact that has on the environment, and also the ability to recycle batteries as well, right? That is another challenge in itself. So I think to summarize, we'll probably wrap it up here. You know, if you're still considering ICE cars, if you're still deciding about ICE or EV and you're a petrol head and you want to have that last ICE hurrah, I think you absolutely still can, right? 2022, just coming into 2022, let's say you get a 3-year lease, you're still going to be good, okay? But the onwards march of EV is absolutely happening, and we cannot neglect to acknowledge that it is going to creep up faster than anyone ever expected. I'm surprised just how quickly EV adoption is accelerating in the UK. The fuel crisis increased EV inquiries by 1,000%. So, you know, it's really happening. It is absolutely upon us, much faster than I'd ever have expected, but it's here, it's happening, and you can do it if you want. But there is still a lot of great ICE cars out there. Anyway, just a few discussion points there. Let me know your thoughts in the comment. If you haven't subscribed already, please do, really would appreciate it. Don't forget, you know, I'm going to be donating money to charity. Please do subscribe, very much appreciated. And I'll catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.